There is explosive, brand new reporting, new today, on missing Epstein files and shocking testimony from a witness that has made an accusation against none other than Donald Trump himself. It is reporting that suggests a cover-up inside the Trump Justice Department and could be a possible explanation to a question that has dogged Donald Trump throughout the entirety of his second term as president, the entirety, really, of the Epstein scandal. In the face of major public backlash, including from deep inside his own political coalition, why is Donald Trump working so hard to block the release of the Epstein files? Our colleagues Lisa Rubin and Michael Schnell confirm news first reported by independent journalists Roger Sollenberger and NPR that the Justice Department has withheld files that contain allegations that Donald Trump sexually abused a person who was a minor at the time. That is despite the fact that the Justice Department is now legally mandated to publicly release all of the Epstein files. NPR reports that more than 50 pages of notes and memos about the FBI's interviews with this accuser are missing. A source who has viewed the documents tells us this, quote, a woman interviewed by the FBI in July 2019 about her Epstein allegations is the same woman who alleged that Trump forced her to perform oral sex on him 35 years ago when she was 13 or 14 years old, and he subsequently hit her. That allegation appears in a 2025 PowerPoint presentation detailing each of the FBI's Epstein-related investigations and a spreadsheet of unconfirmed tips that were called into the Bureau's National Threat Operations Center. MS Now can report that the FBI interviewed her 4 times. A memo from only one of those 4 times, one of those 4 interviews, is publicly available. In a tweet, the Justice Department denies that anything has been deleted, adding this explanation, quote, all responsive documents have been produced unless a document falls within one of the following categories: duplicates, privileged, or part of an ongoing federal investigation, end quote. We have also reached out to the White House for comment and have yet to hear back. In a statement for NPR, however, the White House claimed that Trump has been, quote, totally exonerated on anything related to Epstein. Now, we do not know if this allegation made against Donald Trump about a 13 or 14-year-old victim is true. But we do know what the FBI thought. We know what they did, at least. We know they took it seriously enough to interview this person several times, and that the accusation came up again in 2025, while Donald Trump was president again and facing massive pressure to release the files, which, of course, leads us really to have more questions. As NPR reports, the accuser's name was being circulated by the FBI in late July and early August with the purpose of setting up an interview. That would be weeks after the release of the memo that kicked up the public firestorm around the case. That memo said, quote, we did not uncover evidence that could predicate an investigation against uncharged third parties, end quote. 2 months later, Kash Patel said this under oath.
Who, if anyone, did Epstein traffic these young women to besides himself?
Himself. There is no credible information. None. If there were, I would bring the case yesterday that he trafficked to other individuals. And the information we have, again, is limited.
So the answer is no one?
For the information that we have.
In the files?
In the case file.
No one? Files were withheld. Why did the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, tell Congress in a letter 10 days ago that, quote, no records were withheld or redacted on the basis of embarrassment, reputational harm, or political sensitivity, including to any government official, public figure, or foreign dignitary. We're also learning about these missing files on the same day of Donald Trump's State of the Union address. A half a dozen Democrats will bring survivors of Jeffrey Epstein's abuse to Congress to watch that speech. Missing files from the criminal cases into deceased sex offender Jeffrey Epstein related to Donald Trump himself is where we start today with some of our favorite reporters and friends. Former Assistant Special Agent in charge of the FBI, National Security Intelligence Analyst Michael Feinberg is here. Plus, former top official at the Justice Department, legal analyst Andrew Weissman joins us. With me here at the table, our senior legal reporter Lisa Rubin's here, and political analyst former Senator Claire McCaskill's here. Lisa, I want to pull back the curtain for our viewers who I think have gotten to know a lot of the survivors that we get to talk to together here, and I think have become pretty steeped in the facts and the lines of reporting, and just talk a little bit about what we have in the introduction and the reporting that you credit in your own reporting today, that an independent journalist had some of this reporting for weeks. Other news organizations have been pursuing that line of reporting, and NPR really blew it open today with their reporting. You quickly matched it as it was reporting you've been working on for a long time.
Well, we have. And Nicole, I think one of the things that prevented us and other mainstream media outlets from reporting on this sooner was it wasn't entirely clear how Roger Sullenberger had connected the dots. He had reported last week that there was an accuser. We had known about this accuser because we could see those 2025 FBI documents reflecting the fact that at some point a woman came forward to say that when she was 13 or 14 years old, Donald Trump had sexually assaulted her and physically abused her too in the form of hitting her. What we didn't know is that how to connect the dots between that woman, the woman in the 2025 accounts, and the woman Roger Sullenberger said she was, which was someone who the FBI had talked to in 2019, who had accused Jeffrey Epstein also of abusing her when she was a teenager in the 1980s. It's because we now have a human source who has seen the documents and has confirmed for us that the name in the unredacted documents matches both accounts that we can now say that the woman discussed in 2025 as having made these allegations against Donald Trump is also the same person who was interviewed by the FBI, not just once, but 4 times in 2019 after she first came forward to say she had information about Jeffrey Epstein. There is a lingering mystery, though, and one of the reasons that I think people like Roger and NPR and we are interested in the missing documents is because on the face of the one FBI interview memo that we do have, that allegation against Donald Trump is not included therein. At one point during that interview, the woman tells her account to the FBI agents of how she comes to understand that a man she knew only as Jeff in the 1980s, for whom she was supposed to babysit, only to discover that there was no wife or children in the house, how she came to learn that that man was Jeffrey Epstein. She says it's because someone that she confided in at the time sends her a text message with a photograph of Jeffrey Epstein. And then she asks the FBI agents whether she can crop that photo because somebody else is pictured in it, and she doesn't want to incriminate that person, nor does she want to do anything that would expose her to retaliation, as her then lawyer explains. That's when the FBI agents document that the other person in the photograph is Donald Trump. And she appears to be very sensitive about that. They ask her, have you ever met that person? And she acknowledges that she has, but does not further elaborate. Other than that, however, there is nothing about Donald Trump on the face of that 2019 interview with the woman. But we do know from an index of witness statements that is also in these files that she spoke to the FBI on 3 other occasions. In all 4 interviews, the handwritten notes taken by an FBI agent who was present has not been shared with the public. And each of those 3 successive FBI interviews that follow the first one, those also aren't present. And the department's explanation today, I think, defies credulity in some ways. First of all, nobody is asserting that the documents were deleted. The allegation, I would say, or rather the implication of what we're seeing in the files is that they were never produced in the first place. And the question is why? Because they are right to say there are certain cognizable reasons why you would withhold documents. One of them is for victim privacy and safety. And yet we also know that they've produced one such interview memo already with heavy redactions. That option was certainly available to them. They also claim that they are withholding certain documents on the basis of privilege. Privilege is not a basis that was recognized by the Epstein Files Transparency Act as any reason why the Department of Justice was entitled to hold things back. But even if it were, Claire knows as a former prosecutor, Andrew certainly knows that when we're talking about a document that reflects a conversation between the FBI or Department of Justice officials on one side of the table and a witness on the other, there is nothing in that back and forth that could be remotely attorney-client privileged. And it's not even clear that it could qualify for what the department calls deliberative process privilege, particularly when they have produced so many other memoranda of witness interviews. It just doesn't hold up. And so I think it's important that we continue to hold the department to account and ask them, why aren't these other 3 interview memos in the files? Where are the notes? And we should also look at the indexes that they've provided for other witness statements. There are more than 540 witnesses whose statements they produced to Ghislaine Maxwell's lawyers in the lead up to her criminal trial. It may be that for many of those witnesses as well, including people that we consider to be critical to the Epstein saga, there are also missing memoranda and notes. There's also a separate index for those people who were expected to testify at Ghislaine Maxwell's trial. I can tell you from looking at them, while we have, for example, there's one witness who testified in Ghislaine's trial as Jane. She has a Trump accusation of her own. It's not that Trump sexually assaulted her, but it's that when she was 14 years old, she was brought to Mar-a-Lago by Jeffrey Epstein to meet Donald Trump. And she has never wavered in that. She said that to the FBI consistently. People close to her and other interview memoranda have said that. And she testified to that at trial. And yet the handwritten notes that underlay her interview memoranda, those are missing as well.
Okay, so that's the missing piece. Let me deal with the human story that's being told. So a child, a 13 or 14-year-old, was or allegedly reported this hideous sexual assault followed by a physical assault. and accuses Donald Trump.
But we don't know where she did that or how she did that, because the only document that tells us that she made that accusation is a 2025 spreadsheet and an accompanying presentation that the FBI put together when they were theoretically sort of getting their minds around the fact that they might have to produce files in response either to a subpoena or to some act of Congress. But the underlying document memorializing her making that accusation, which I imagine would be an accusation longer than 2 or 3 lines, which appear in the spreadsheet that we have from the FBI or their presentation, we don't know where that is. When did this woman say that? We know it's the same woman, but we don't know when she said it, to whom she said it, who was in the room, and how she detailed it. Those are mysteries that the American public deserves answers to, Nicole.